Welcome once again. This is Charlie Greenberg, your host and moderator for webMethods Wednesdays, which is Software AG's weekly presentation of cutting-edge use cases and demos supported through webMethods technology, including integration, API management, master data management, business process management, or BPM, mobile technology, among other products. We recently relaunched our 2016 webMethods Wednesday series with a high-level whiteboarding presentation of Software AG's digital business platform, which enables the rapid development of the next generation of digital applications. Just last week, we followed up with a real-world customer experience use case built on that very platform. Today, we'll be drilling down to one of the essential webMethods products you would have seen in last week's digital business platform demo, and that's AgileApps, an adaptive solution for quickly building business applications. In a moment, I'll be introducing Rick McEachern, Vice President of Agile Processes, who's going to show you how to go from App Zero to App Hero in 29 minutes. Before we begin, however, at the conclusion of today's presentation, Rick and I will be conducting a Q&A session on today's subject, so we welcome your questions. At any point, please use the WebEx Q&A box at the bottom right-hand side of your screen. And with that, it's my pleasure to introduce Rick McEachern.
Thank you, Charlie. Thanks, everyone, for joining today. We're glad you're here. Today, we're going to have some fun going through the presentation, go from App Zero to App Hero in 29 minutes. This is a time trial, so we are going to go through some scenarios together and build some applications. But, you know, to sort of frame this correctly, as an IT leader or business leader in your enterprise, you know that there's been more change in your business and in the market than ever before. Certainly when we see changes happening in social, with mapping, with devices and tablets and robotics and Internet of Things and purchasing and e-commerce, there is just an acceleration in the amount of creativity and innovation that goes on that IT needs to deal with. And so bridging that gap between what the business, your business provides and what customers expect can be a pretty enormous gap. And so at Software AG, of course, we provide a lot of technologies that Charlie's mentioned earlier that help businesses become more agile and adaptive and create solutions quickly that can make a big impact in how they can adapt to changing environments, market conditions, regulatory changes, and so on. With the digital business platform, we include a lot of capabilities, from agile application development to business transformation, streaming analytics, and internet integration and connectivity. Almost doesn't matter what the use case is, we've got the middleware platform to help you quickly get it in place. Today, what we're talking about is the far left block, agile development, and that's the idea of how can I quickly create applications that respond to changing conditions that I see with customers, the market, or the business, and how can I do it in a way that really accelerates what IT can do? Can I get applications built for my business or for my needs in a matter of days instead of weeks or sometimes even longer? And can I do it in a way that's consistent with enterprise security principles and also provides flexibility for future changes as of course, the environment continues to march forward? And so we're going to focus on agile development and agile apps. Where we're going today is we're going to step into the life of an IT manager whose job it is to keep track of all kinds of assets for the company. And not only that, her responsibility is to make sure that assets are accounted for in the correct way, they get set up correctly, and so on. We're going to look at different ways of sharing the data, and then we're going to build an application, add a process to go along with that to get things, to take these assets through their asset provisioning lifecycle, and then we'll see what it looks like on a mobile application. So hang tight, we're going to go through this together and look at the life of Jenna. Jenna is an IT manager. She keeps track of all kinds of assets, whether it's cell phone assets, server assets, laptops, you name it. She keeps track of what the company purchases and deploys to different employees within the enterprise. And like so many people in marketing and sales and IT, you name it, you use the tools that you've got to get the job done. And she's used spreadsheets, and they're great, but they can only take you so far. For example, spreadsheets aren't collaborative. We're not really counting collaboration as, 4 people looking over your shoulder as you update a spreadsheet. That's not what we mean. Spreadsheets are not collaborative. It's very difficult to have multiple people working on the same data. Not up to date. It's not real time. We've all lived through the scenario where we're trying to manage important data in a spreadsheet, and we play the fun enterprise game. Who's got the latest version of the spreadsheet? I emailed that to you. Did you send it back to me? Oh, you sent it back to me, but you made one more change, so you sent me another one. Now do I have the latest version of the spreadsheet? And so distributing a spreadsheet, have people editing it, bringing it back, trying to manage it that way is not efficient, and it's really inaccurate. There's no standard reports. We all know this, right? We do work in Excel. We try to get charts right and tables right. We copy and paste them into Word or into an email. Then we send them out. And then at the end of the month, when new reports are due, you repeat the process and then try to create the standard report. So it's not real time. There's no way of just saying, setting up a report and have it delivered every month at the end of the month. There's no process or business rules. So you can't really automate the review of data that comes in. Of course, emailing the spreadsheet to have someone do something with it and sending it back doesn't count. That leads us back to point number 2, who's got the right version of the spreadsheet. And so this is fine. I mean, everybody uses them. They take you pretty far, but they don't take you far enough, especially if you're thinking you need to do something different. And so quickly her mind goes to, well, what if I just build this myself? And that's fine. We've all thought about that. But the problems quickly become obvious. One is that it's costly and time-consuming to create an app from scratch. Everybody's overworked. Who's got the time to do it? Can I even get budget to do it? Am I going to need a developer? Can I get that from the development pool to do it? The development managers will come back and say, it's not enough to have a developer. You also have to have QA. Not enough to have QA. You also have to have someone who manages it through the life of the product. It doesn't run itself. You got to have hosting equipment. You got to have infrastructure set up. And pretty soon you just throw your hands up and say, wow, getting an app developed just for what I need to make my business function better is just not worth it. And then you add into that the business users who would be using this app, your team, or people who are using or requesting computer assets, well, they want things to be fast and flexible. They want the user interface to be friendly. And, of course, you want to be able to continue to update it as new requirements come in. And then, of course, the IT organizations, they have requirements. They want it to be secure. You got to be able to maintain it easily. You got to be able to make sure that it's something that can be sustainable within the enterprise. And so when you consider the alternate approaches, she thought there's got to be a better way than building it yourself. Let's look and see what's out there. So as part of her strategy, she went out and looked for something that's visually to create applications faster. Now, we've all heard about rapid application development platforms. You can visually assemble applications. Well, that's a key requirement. Can they integrate it with systems of record on the back end? There's all kinds of systems of record across an enterprise, and so we need to exchange data with that. It's got to be able to be something that can be maintained over the life of the application. It's got to be cost effective. Can't be hard to use because I don't want to spend a lot of time training people on the nuances of the application. And when I create the app, I want to be able to access that data wherever I'm at. If I'm at my desktop, I should be able to. If I'm on the road with my iPhone, I should be able to. So with these common business requirements, she looked out and she came up with AgileApps. What else? AgileApps is a platform that was built specifically with the idea that you could assemble applications rapidly and visually without writing code. And you can do it with subject matter experts. Of course, IT people can get involved. They can do some of the more complex things where integrations are needed or if custom coding is needed. But for the vast majority of the use case scenarios, subject matter experts or business analysts can create these applications visually. And you can create different types of applications. If you just have a Excel spreadsheet or an Access database, and you're saying, I really need it in the cloud and not under my desk anymore, it's in the cloud where people can collaborate on it, that can be done. You can create really sophisticated case management applications where cases become the central object, and just like in the kind of the real world, people have cases, they shove all kinds of documents and forms and updates into that folder, and they pass it from one caseworker to another so they have the complete context of what's going on with the case when it's their turn to do something with that case. You can do the same thing online, and we support case management style applications in AgileApps as well. The reason AgileApps lets you assemble applications rapidly is because all the building blocks are already there. Of course, to access it on mobile or tablet or desktop, that's included. To be able to have different patterns of engagement is included as well. So, for example, if you wanted to put a web form on a SharePoint server somewhere where people could place their request for a new laptop, that could flow directly into AgileApps. Or maybe you want to set up an email address, support@yourcompany.com, and so whenever someone sends an email to support@yourcompany.com, it automatically opens up a case. It automatically attaches the file to the case if one was included. It starts a process right then. You can also do things by connecting this to Facebook or Twitter if you want to begin to do sentiment analysis and convert comments into cases as well. So lots of ways of engaging with people in applications. Interaction patterns are supported. I mentioned earlier access style database, traditional relational style databases are supported, but so are case management style applications. So you've got two of the most common use case pattern applications that can be implemented very easily in this platform. Case inboxes are there, universal task manager is there, so you get tasks, you can see them, you can manage them, they'll link back to cases and your task activities to be processed. You can create all kinds of dynamic forms. You can, of course, attach files and view files or create documents. A lot of capabilities there. It's not just enough to capture data. You have to be able to make better decisions on the data. And so as a result of that, reports and dashboards are building blocks that are included, and so you can use that to look at the data and slice it in different ways. And then there's a lot of platform capabilities. So business rules is automatically integrated. A visual process designer is already there. The ability to set SLAs, service level agreements against certain tasks, so you can monitor the response times to get certain important tasks done. Just if you're not familiar with that, think about it in terms of a government setting where, citizen calls and says, hey, I've got this pothole in the street. Well, maybe that turns into a service request that gets handled in 2 months. If the customer calls and says, hey, I smell some gas, maybe that automatically triggers a service level response time where people are dispatched and they go to the site and they investigate within 10, 15 minutes, something like that. So you can set SLAs on all kinds of things, tier 1 customer, tier 3 customer, tier 1 supplier, tier 3 supplier, maybe you could get different response times and so on. And then, of course, there's all these platform capabilities that help you integrate it with back-end systems or extend the capabilities of the platform to do custom things. All right, so those are the building blocks that help you get it done. Now, before she thinks about how to turn her spreadsheet into an application, she needs to do a little application thinking along the way. And that's a little bit different than spreadsheet thinking. In spreadsheet thinking, you simply start by adding a column of data and adding rows of data, and then it just sort of grows over time. In application thinking, just get a little bit ahead of it. Think about what information we want to track, what processes we want to automate, who would be involved in these processes. These could be people with different roles across the organization who are going to be receiving tasks, and they need to be able to do something with the information they're receiving. Which business rules are we going to have that can start processes? For example, if a new request for a laptop comes in, do they automatically get it, or does it go through some approval process? And so we can think about under what conditions would that be triggered, including things like, well, if it's over $250, maybe it goes to a certain level of management for approval. If it's less than $250, then it goes to some other path for approval. So those things can be done. And then finally, analyze the data to know what you want to get out of it. So let's walk through these quickly. First one is checklist. Since we're still in this scenario, we're going through together of an asset manager. What is it? It's like, all right, I got to receive a request. It's got to get approved. I got to go through some sort of process to order it and then get it into inventory, maybe provision it and then install it, and then maybe let people know that it's about to be installed, and so on. So this could be just the high-level overview of the different steps that are going to take place that they would want to use to automate their organization. The next thing would be what information is needed. You know, service date, warranty dates, who we purchased it from, description, maybe organization it's assigned to. This is easy. This is what she's using today. She's tracking that in Excel. Define the process, step 3. We've all done this, and if you can whiteboard out a process in your office, you can build a runnable process in AgileApps. In this case, we're just looking at a very simple process, and there could be many of them. On that first step, you know, there could be a process ahead of this for placing the order and processing the order, another one for getting the order and inventorying the order. This is one where we say, all right, let's go ahead and provision the unit. We'll determine its status. We'll either put it into inventory or we'll assign it to a user. We'll notify a user, and then someone will have to do delivery and installation. And then maybe after delivery and installation, the help desk will send a customer stat survey. Just an example. This could be anything. But the idea is simple processes we all know how to do can be run in the platform very quickly. So define the process is the next step. Think about the business rules. Again, we're in an asset management mindset. So when new equipment comes in, who is it that reviews it? Does it go into inventory or not? How long do they have to make that decision? Do we just keep waiting until it eventually gets done, or is there an SLA attached to it? Or different software stacks provisioned onto it? And so on. You just keep going, including things like, well, who's ordering it? Is there an order that requires VIP treatment? Maybe because it needs to be delivered on the road for a very important meeting, or someone who gets a different software stack provisioned. Whatever it is, think in terms of the business rules that you want to implement that will automate how the work is done, and that'll save you a lot of time. The final step here is to think about what you want out of the system. If you know what you want out of the system, it's easier to design the application to give it to you. Maybe you want to look at all the assets by status or by category or OS, or maybe you want to see all the expiry dates for the for software contracts, or all the warranty expirations for hardware, so you can extend those or retire that equipment, or maybe just do a roll-up report by vendor and see how much how much have we spent with them, or you name it. You get the idea. Think about what you want out of it, and that will help you in designing your application. All right, so that's the setup. She's looked around. She's found AgileApps. It looks pretty powerful, got a lot of building blocks for her. She's thought about the type of application she wants to build, and so now let's build it. So let me switch contexts here. I will bring up the environment just to sort of keep everybody honest here. I'll put this at 29 minutes. That's the timer. And let's begin. All right, what we're looking at right here is the AgileApps environment. It opens up into a dashboard. You can have as many dashboards as you want. You can rearrange the dashboard. Everything's drag and droppable. There's a lot of capabilities to the application. But let's get right into what we're talking about. When you create an application in AgileApps, you can have lots of applications as part of your account. And so I may start with IT service requests, and I may add additional applications as we go. And this is a common use case. This happens all the time. because as soon as you build one application, another group says, hey, that would be great. Can we use that for this? Or can we hook into that information for something related? And the answer is yes, you can. You can add additional applications as you go, and that's just part of the standard package for the application. However, we don't have any applications here that manage Jenna's data, so we have to go and create a new application. So let's do that. We'll go to the Applications tab, and we'll create a new application. There's multiple ways to create an application. If you're creating a complex relational application from scratch, you can use the wizard to do that. Walk you through object definitions and relationships. Very easy process. Or, since we're in a time trial today, we will do create an application by import. And so let's take a look at Jenna's data. Here we go. It's a spreadsheet. We've all seen Vega spreadsheets like this, where we see category of information, description, all kinds of attributes, price of it, lease dates, monthly lease payments, which organizations assigned to, serial numbers. We've all managed stuff like this. And so keeping track of all of this detail with all the different people that are involved with it is a hassle. So that's why we want to automate this. So I'm just going to copy this data from the spreadsheet, and I'm going to paste it right here. And then it's going to ask me some questions as the software looks at the data and tries to make sense of it. It's going to ask me for some help. So I'm just going to walk through this with you, and we'll set some data types for each of the columns that helps the application know how to manage the data that it's receiving. So I'll say right here, this is a pick list of categories, text field, this is a number field. There's a few columns here, so I'm just going to go through it. We'll just go through it together. It may take a moment. Number field, fair market value, that's currency. Host name, text field, service date, lease date, these are date fields. Lease expiry, date, leasing company, that's fine. Manufacturer, that's fine. Mobile carrier, fine. Okay, that's the currency. Operating system, version. There's only so many organizations in this enterprise, so that's it. We'll just make it a pick list. There's only so many ownership statuses. Do we buy it? Do we lease it? Do we own it? Whatever. We'll make that a pick list as well. Part numbers, IP addresses, user numbers. Okay, almost done. Oops, serial number, server URL. Maybe there's a management URL that takes you directly to that server for remote management. Status, we'll make that a pick list. And 2 more date fields. Okay, got it. All right, so we've just gone through all of our data. We've given it some specific data typing on what we're doing here. And now let's create an application. And we'll call it My IT Asset Tracker app. It could be anything. And let's press create. The system will go through now, and it'll create an application environment. It'll create the application object. It will also create all the data fields, and it will import the data in a single step. So let's go take a look at the app we just created. By default, we set up a dashboard. It took some of the information in the default table and put it here, took one of the enumerated pick lists and turned it into a chart, just a starter dashboard. That's all. We're going to change some values as we go through this. And so let's take a look at the data specifically. And I'll go to this tab called Asset Tracker App Data, and we can see that the information I imported is here. It's not really arranged in a very good way. I'll need to address that. If I go to this list and look at this list, these aren't the most important fields that are displayed by default, so let's pick that up as well. All right, so when I open this object and look at this, I can see a couple things. One is that some default views were created for me, so I can look at the data in various different ways as I interact with it on the system. I can create a new view. I can create as many views as I want, which are just attribute filtered ways of looking at the data that you've got in your database tables. So for this view, let's go ahead and edit it really quickly, make it something that's more relevant for what I care about. I don't care about CPU and drives. I do care about status. Maybe I care about warranty expiry, and then finally, who owns it? Organization. All right, let's preview that before I save it, see if that's basically what I want. Yeah, that looks pretty good. All right, I'll save that. So I'm changing the default view for this application to make it something that is more usable and so more friendly. So here I can see the category, description, and that information. All right, so I've made it much more to my liking. Now when I open one of these records, though, I've got the other problem, which is this is all just lumped together. Let's see if we can do something to make that a little bit easier and more friendly to use, or no one on the team is going to want to use it. So let's go over here and we will edit this object. And we'll see that this is an application that includes two objects. One is tasks and the other one is the asset tracker object or table that we're using to track and manage this data. Let me open that. And when I open that object, you'll see that there's just a whole lot of options for configuring how things should work. If you want to add a new field to the application, click here and you can add any of the field types to those different field types that we've talked about before. If you want to add new forms and make them role specific, you can do it. There's just a whole lot of capabilities here. For now, for today, let's just focus on forms. We'll go and look at the default form and we can see that just like we saw it over there, all the information is kind of imported and it's kind of all mixed together. Let's make it easier to use. So first thing I do is I'll add some section information here. Sections are just ways of breaking up forms and grouping fields into ways that make sense for people. So, for example, we could say, we'll put one here called location details. Since we have some fields that deal with that, we'll do another section and we will call it lease information. Okay, we'll do another one and we'll call it warranty info. And information, technical, we have a lot of technical information here. We'll just do some technical info too. And basic, we will go ahead and relabel that to asset information or info. That's what we're doing to make it consistent. All right, next thing is let's go ahead and allocate some of these fields to these different sections. So we've got some warranty info. Let me just put that in there. And that doesn't make sense. Do it this way, start there, ends there. All right. Lease information, I have some monthly lease payments, leasing company, lease date, lease expires. Okay. Okay, just some information there. Maybe this makes more sense to put the leasing company, payment. I mean, this is subjective. You can, of course, arrange this however you want. Location details, I got some of that going on. Let's see, room, rack. Rack position. All right. Technical details, I've got some of those going on. OS, IP address. So you get the idea. Just drag and drop and move things around however you want. If you define a new field, you can, of course, place it wherever you want on the form as well. All right, so just all right, well, that's good for now. We just did some things. Now let's rearrange this a little bit. I want asset information first, location, lease, maybe technical next, location, lease, and warranty info. Let's save that. All right, let's try it out now. We can see the same data we've been looking at. Now when I open it up, it starts to look a lot more friendly, something that people could actually interact with. And we can see that I've got these form sections now that we've added that let me tab between them and update the information on my form. So far, so good. That's what I wanted to do, make a form that was useful and friendly for people to use. And however, what I also wanted to do was capture a business process so that I'm not emailing this information around, but that people can use it to do what they need to do with it. So let's now switch to the process of building a process. We start by going back to the object, and when I open the object, you'll see that there's a lot of controls over here, one of which is processes. And you can see I don't have any processes yet, which is understandable. It's a brand new application. But let me open it. I'll create a new process. And what this will do is bring forward the process designer. Actually, let me do one thing first. I've created an application, but I haven't defined any roles for the participants of this application. So let me go ahead and basically define some roles so that when I create a process, I can assign those tasks to those roles. So by default, I have a manager role in the system. For speed purposes, what I'll do is just clone this manager role a few times. I can always go back later and give very specific access controls, who can view, who can delete, who can update certain objects in the system, and which actions different people can have in the system. But for now, well, let's just clone this, and we will say, all right, we've got a provisioning manager. We'll clone it again, and we'll say we've got logistics manager. We'll do one more, and we'll say we have a trainer. And then we'll say these are basically the roles of the people who will be interacting with this application. And they have a different job to do. I'll be assigning them tasks, and they will be either inventorying or fulfilling the placement of assets across the company. All right, so I've defined some specific roles, and now let's go and build a process that uses those. So I'll open the process designer once more. And this opens up a palette. Much like I described before, this is a palette like a whiteboard. It includes a lot of the business process controls you've seen when you've used Visio or you've used almost any tool that has any process capabilities there. The ability to create a user task or an approval step, send an email, maybe execute a web service or make some decisions. Our process is pretty straightforward to start with. So I'm going to create this start event right here. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a user task. And this user task is going to be to provision asset. And we'll just say, you know, this is about loading software. And we're going to say it should be done in 4 hours. And I'm going to assign this to the provisioning manager. And I could assign it to the provisioning manager. So anyone who has access to this application, who's in the role of provisioning manager, could claim this task and do it. That's one way it could work. I can assign it to a specific individual, or I can assign it using a rule set if I have more complex task assignment capabilities. But for now, anyone who's in the role of provisioning manager can pick up this provisioning task and do it. I also have the ability to define teams. And so you can, so for example, I could have a team that does provisioning for manufacturing, maybe one that does it for the finance team, maybe one that does it for customer support. And so I could further scope down who this task is assigned to based on the combination of the role and their team. And then I can select which form they should see when they're interacting with the data. For now, we'll just say the default form. So I've created a brand new task. I'll link it up with the start event. And then after an asset is provisioned, we'll just create another task here. And we'll say status determination, or we'll do it the other way, determine status, and this deals with allocation. Where does this go? Again, we'll just say 4 hours is standard. We'll assign this to a manager, and we'll just leave it as any team, default format. Okay, so it's provisioned. Someone needs to determine what we do with it, and now we need to make a decision. And so we'll add a decision switch. And a decision switch will let you inspect criteria of the form, and based on what it finds, you can take the process one way or you can take the process another way. So here we've created a decision switch, and I'm going to add a new task up here for training and install. Maybe this is 8 hours, and this goes to the trainer. And I'm going to hook it up. And I'm going to say, so this is installation. And I'm going to inspect my form values, and I'm going to say that if the status equals active, then we're going to go ahead and allocate a task to a trainer so that he can go and install it with the user. Then I'm going to add another task, and I'm going to make this inventory. And we'll send this to Logistics Manager. Just an example, this can, of course, you get the idea, it can be anything you want. And for this scenario, we're going to say, all right, let's hook this up. And we're going to say that if the inventory, and we'll say if the status is equal to available, not yet active, it's available for someone to use, we'll send it to inventory. And now let's just wrap this up. We'll just end these tasks after that's done. All right, so we took a little whiteboard process about provisioning an asset, and now based on what's happening in the form, we can start to create tasks for other people that link back to the asset so they can do their work and move that information through a process. So let me save it, and I'll call this provisioning and deployment, something like that, maybe add some notes to it, and have it save that as a process in my process library. Now, every process that's created is automatically versioned. We encourage people to try out new processes, add new steps, optimize it, change it. And every time you save it, a new version is created. But if you ever need to revert back to a previous version, just click on that previous version and revert to it. And this way, the system's very forgiving and encourages innovation, allows you to try things out, and of course, continually optimize how you get the work done. And so this process has now been created, but we don't have any information moving through it yet. So let's go back to our application. We'll open up the record, and you'll see that since we've defined a process, we now have a process that's visible to us over here called provisioning and deployment. And if I were to click on this, it would give me some preview of what's happening and what the steps are, but there are no steps as yet. This process has never been run. So let's go ahead and start it, and I'll start this process, and you'll see that a task is created for someone to provision the asset. If I were to now click on this process, you'll see a map that shows that this process is now living at this step with someone who needs to do some work before the process advances to the next step. So whoever assigned the provisioning manager task will be able to log in and see that they have a to-do item that's related to a specific asset, and what they need to do is load some software on it. They can go and click and come back to that asset, and then they can do their work, and then they can mark it as complete, and then they can move on. And so there's if I log in as the provisioning manager, then they would be able to see a button here that says complete, and then the task will advance to the next stage. However, you can start a task manually, you can stop a task manually, but many times you want the system to do automatic things for you. And that's important because that starts to really deliver efficiencies to the organization. So for example, we've got the status link here, and this status has active, available, and what we want to do, for example, is set up a form where if it's active, let's just go ahead and start this process automatically. There's no use waiting around for someone to click on this start button. We just know that if it's active, someone changes the status to active, it's just ready to go. And the next people need to get involved with it. So to do that, what you would do is you would implement some business rules. And business rules are like database triggers that can be linked to specific events like creation of record events, update events, deletion events, process status changes, imports, and so forth. But business rules can also be linked to calendars. So you might say at the first day of every month, send this report to division heads so they know which new requests have come in for laptops. Or send this report at the end of every year so each department can do their asset inventory and report back, make sure, all the assets that have been assigned to them are still accounted for. Or you could have timer rules. And timer rules are, think about a clock, a timer. So you could say, all right, 3 hours after a system has been assigned to a trainer, we want to send an email out to the end user to notify them that a trainer will be contacting them about a date for the installation of their new laptop, something like that. So the combination of these three things, events, calendars, and timers, lets you create a very powerful system that automates almost any scenario. And then we've got the idea of rule sets, which lets you layer these into a folder of rules that can be run through sequentially. So you can just, for example, from a process, call a rule set, and it could be layered in, 20 different rules that fire automation sequences. For now, let's just go ahead and create an update rule, and this rule will be for, let's say, we'll call it active asset rule, and what it will do is start asset assignment. All right. When you've enabled a rule, the next thing you need to do is determine what the execution criteria is. Does it always run? So whenever a record is updated, this is something that always happens. There are cases where you want to do that. So for example, someone sends an email, it opens up a case, you want to automatically assign it to a group to review it. That can be done. In our case, what we want to do is set up a criteria. And so we'll say that when these conditions are true, and I'll go and select the conditions. So if status equals active, and then I want it to do certain things. There's some actions to perform. And now these are, you can have as many of these as you want as well. You can add a record or update some values of a record, assign it to different people, send an email, start a process. Yeah, that's what I want to do. I want to start a process that we just defined called provisioning and deployment. So whenever a record is updated and the status is active, let's start this process automatically. And if I want to layer in additional tasks, I can do that, including things like executing a rule set, maybe invoking some Java method, or some web service. I can do all of that as well. For now, let's just save that. That's my rule. Let's go back to our application. Let's debug it a little bit. We can see that this process hasn't started. Someone's looked at this record and says, yeah, it's complete, looks good. I'm going to change the status to active, and I'm going to save it. When I save the record, the business rule will notice that the status has changed to active. It matches the criteria in the business rule. It will automatically start this process and create a task for someone. That's a lot of power. You can layer so many business rules together, and that can control your process and orchestrate your processes. This is a big win for you. and it's just an enormous amount of value to the enterprise. Let's see how we're doing on the time. Okay, a couple more minutes. Let's go next and talk about reporting and analytics. You can see here that I've got a basic report, IT asset tracking. It took the data in my standard import, didn't do much with it. You can see I've got sectional data here, grouped by category. Okay, it's kind of interesting, but I need something different. And so I can customize this, and I can get rid of the fields I don't really care about. And I can bring over those fields which I do care about. So maybe I care about warranty information, maybe I care about organization, maybe that's it for now. And I can preview that down below, see how my report's looking. Okay, I'm still grouping by category, but my columns have now changed to what I care about. Let's go ahead and change the order of this. So maybe I want organization instead of category to come first. Description, warranty start before warranty expire. Preview that. I can see that that's beginning to shape up nicely. I can filter this report in any number of ways. By dates, I can do dynamic filtering. This month, last month, yesterday, last 365 days, next 120 days. You've got a lot of capability and flexibility there. Or you can pick specific date range to answer questions that come in. You can do that. Let's just skip that for the moment. I can add color coding to my reports. That's possible. I can add grouping. You can see in the report that we had, everything was grouped sectionally by category. Let's go ahead and add a column grouping. And here I'll say we're grouping it by category, but let's also group it by organization. Give me a high-level view of what's happening so I can see how my assets are deployed and how many assets are deployed by group. Okay, my report's starting to shape up. Let's add a computational field. Well, I didn't include anything other than record counts, but let's do that. And then finally, a charting. Maybe instead of a pie chart, I want a bar chart. And let me preview that. Starting to look right, so let me save it. This is my modified asset report in my folder. Save. I can run this report on demand with real-time data at any time, but more importantly, I can also schedule this report to be delivered whenever I want to. Now, because I do this all the time and that information I create is important, what I want to do is modify my dashboard to bring that important information into my dashboard. And here, let's say I only care about the table information in that report, so I'll save it. I've modified my dashboard so I keep an accurate, real-time view of which assets are deployed to which organizations. And finally, let's take a look at how this will look on a mobile device. And of course, this is just a simulator, but we'll see how it looks on an iPhone. And you can see that on the iPhone, I can see the dashboard I've just created. I can go back and track the asset information, see all the information that's there for the application. I can see the tasks that are running, see the tasks that need to be complete, and so on. Applications that are created online are automatically mobile enabled. Though the time is up, I took you on a fast tour. I hope you found it interesting. Let's open this up for any questions.
Thank you very much, Rick. That was a great presentation. Let me remind everybody, if you haven't posed a question at this point, please quickly use the Q&A chat box in the lower right-hand side of the WebEx screen. And let's go right to questions, in fact. So somebody was curious as to how this, given the tracking, the event tracking and the process flow and so forth, how does this compare with BPMS?
Good. Okay. So, of course, when at Software G, we realize customers have all kinds of processes, and so we've got a full suite of capabilities to address whatever processes customers want. If they have high transaction, application-to-application processes that can run things like, connected ATM systems or NASDAQ, trading systems or webMethods BPMS is a great solution. If customers, on the other hand, are like Jenna and they want to keep track of assets, they want to have departmental processes, or they have other case management style applications where it's more human-centric, where they can do ad hoc collaboration or task assignment, or they can do reports and change things with very little assistance from IT, but they can run it as their business. This becomes a different application pattern. It's something that's supported equally well. So think of these as two different ends of the same continuum. And of course, over time, we're bringing these capabilities together. So it's a smooth transition from a company that is running this, that's kind of their back-end logistics or order-to-cash process, and as well as any departments along that who want to do some human-centric apps as well. So we're bringing it all together for our customers.
Is this a tool that can also be used on premises?
Yeah, sure. No question about it. We run it in the cloud as a service. That allows people to experiment and get up to speed very quickly without having to buy any equipment or try to get resources to do certain projects. Just take an online account trial and start to learn it and build it. However, there are cases where, through cultural preference or legal requirements or data residency needs or whatever the case may be, we do have clients, a lot of them, who want to run this in their own data center. Can be done, and we support them both. It just depends on what our clients want.
Understood. And what's the story with integration? How is that accomplished with this tool?
Sure. So this platform was created in the cloud, for the cloud, and by that, it's cloud native. It has APIs for everything. You can interact with the system through REST APIs, and get data out of the system through XML or JSON. You can use web services whistles to set up a connection to another service. The answer is you can put data into the system or get data out of the system through just a ton of well-defined and documented APIs and code samples on our wiki.
Could you talk a little bit about what are the extensions and development capabilities?
Yeah, sure. So this is a platform. It's different than a single purpose-built application. It's a platform. So you can build applications on the fly, but you can also extend it. And that kind of the definition of a platform is something you can extend. And so that's what you can do here too. Leveraging your existing Java skill set for developers within your enterprise, you can write custom backend classes that applications can leverage. You can write JavaScript on form processing or extra form validations or extra things you want to do. So JavaScript and Java are absolutely supported, and there's no new language that needs to be learned. It's all Java, standard Java.
And Rick, how long does it take to get up to speed on this? I mean, you did it in 29 minutes. What do you think, realistically?
It takes a little bit longer than 29 minutes. I would allow 35. No, it takes a little bit more time than that. When people take a trial, when our clients take a trial, one of the first resources that's available to them is a step-by-step guide in how to build an application. And in that, we'll walk you through how to build your first case management style application and exercise all these capabilities that we've talked about today and more, so that you fully understand kind of a tour of the application as you build out a really robust application. After that, you've got the knowledge to take those building blocks and combine them in a ton of interesting ways, whether it's building an asset tracker or building a wastewater backflow tracker application, or you want to do something that deals with IT service requests, case management. You'll have the building blocks you need. So you can get up to speed, I would say, within a week. Many times people get up to speed much faster than that. In a presentation with a customer, 2-day presentation. After the first day that night, one of the one of the individuals in the audience built an application to show it to us the next day on the platform. It's just like that. You really feel empowered because you get a lot done very quickly.
In terms of previous experience, would you need a Java background, a development background? Can a user use this tool not needing an IT background?
Yeah, absolutely. It certainly helps if you have a little bit of understanding of some of the concepts that are there. If you are an Excel power user, we typically say that you have all the skills you need to pick this up very quickly. You know, if you're an Excel user, you've got multiple tabs, you know how to do formulas, maybe link multiple tabs together with formulas. You've got the conceptual base to do this. And so if you're kind of an Excel power user, you're good to go. If you're not, though, you can learn it. And so through our documentation and our step-by-step example of building an application, you can pick it up quickly. And the whole platform was designed for non-IT developers to be able to build applications. So absolutely can be picked up quickly.
Okay, we're going to, Rick, go to kind of the lightning round here, so I'm going to try to rattle off as many quick questions as I can. Some of them are point on. So I think we know the answer to this, but this individual asks, can I use it as a workflow tool?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the business process is we call it business process, but you can definitely use it for workflow.
What is the back end for storing the data? Is it a database, or is it file-based, flat file-based, or?
Nope. Data is stored in MySQL database, database-driven application environment. The files that you attach are stored in a file repository. Both the database and the file repository are secured in your own tenant's secure namespace, so there's no security issue of people accessing data that they can't or shouldn't get access to.
Okay, I have one more, which kind of sounds like, I think, the integration question, but let me just say to everyone else, if your questions weren't answered, here are our email addresses. You really want to get in touch with Rick, but Rick may well reach out to you, and I can help enable that. So that's my email address, too, at the bottom middle of this slide we're all looking at. So finally, from what sources can Agile Apps, and the way it's phrased here is fetch data?
Well, if the source of that data is API enabled, either through a web service or REST APIs, we should be able to get data or fetch data that way. Nothing more complex than that. We do it through REST or we do it through web services, SOAP APIs.
Got it. My thanks again to Rick McEachern for this great presentation. We'll be back again next week, both 10 Eastern and 2 Eastern, for a comparable with the clock going, publish APIs in 15 minutes. In the meantime, have a great day, and thanks for coming.
Thank you.